product people. If you sell direct to consumer and dream of getting your product onto retail shelves, this episode could save you thousands in costly mistakes. Welcome to Product Knowledge, the podcast about creating and marketing products people truly need. I'm Laurier Mandan, President and Lead Consultant of Graphos Product and author of I Need That, Creating and Marketing Products People Are Compelled to Buy. The path from direct-to-consumer to retail success is something many product makers dream about, but it's also where countless promising products have gone to die. Bad logistics choices, bloated inventory, and unnecessary costs can sink even great products before they ever reach a store shelf. Paul Jarrett has come up with a way to help brands bridge this critical, normally very risky gap. As co-founder and CEO of Bulu, Paul guides emerging inventor entrepreneurs and established consumer brands through the complex maze of fulfillment, distribution, and retail strategy. His expertise helps product makers maximize efficiency and profitability while avoiding the expensive pitfalls that often come with retail expansion. From optimizing DTC fulfillment to building strategic retail partnerships, Paul knows exactly what it takes to scale successfully in an unforgiving retail landscape. I'm delighted to have Paul as today's guest on Product Knowledge. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for weeks, so I've got so much I want to ask you. But to start out with, you've got an amazing backstory alongside your wife and business partner, Stephanie. Why don't you start by telling us briefly where you come from yourself, how the two of you met, which blends with your early careers, and how all of that brought you to where you are now with Bulu.
Actually, the first time that we connected was at the University of Nebraska. And I joined the advertising club, and she is the advertising president. And as soon as I saw her kind of running the show, I was like, ooh, I want to get in on that. So stuck with advertising club. Our careers started in the actual ad agency world. She was a designer and I was kind of on the account side. And we started by, I think some of our first projects were product packaging. I remember trying to get a photography of an olive, which is just almost impossible to make an olive look good with a photograph. You need to get 3D rendering.
It's not photogenic
at all.
No,
not at all. And so, we really earned our chops there, local agency. I had done an internship in New York City with Nike. So we moved to New York and worked there. Phenomenal experience. I just summarized my New York experience with there is not a whole heck of a lot separating a New York City advertising agency meeting from a local Lincoln, Nebraska advertising agency. You always think there's some masterminds behind, everything, working in New York City and working in LA and wherever. And it's still a lot of the same. Should we do blue or green? I don't know. Go do the research to back it up. So we did that. We had a lot of success. We actually flip-flopped a lot. So she went to the account side. I became a copywriter. But between the both of us, media buying, account management, copywriting, package design, user interface design, we kind of did it all. And we're kind of became known as this wrecking crew of, if you put the Jarretts on it, it's going to get done correctly, right? Moved to San Francisco, not because, a lot of times in New York City, if you're not good enough, you move out to a different satellite office, right? We chose to move to San Francisco just because we wanted to, right? So we're working in San Francisco, and I'll be darned, we were located above a coffee shop called Epicenter Cafe. And I remember going to this coffee shop, and, this guy from Foursquare would come tell me about his deal. Old Dennis, his name was, the founder. There was Sam from Postmates. So there's all these people that are there, kind of, you're just a random person, and, usually you're a startup or a VC, and I was an ad guy. And so we would go down there and just look at all these ideas and learn about it. And once we learned that they were raising capital, and like I always say, I grew up in a trailer park in Lincoln, Nebraska, and my wife grew up in Wahoo, Nebraska, a town of 2,000. But once we learned that people were willing to put millions of dollars into your idea, and if it failed, you weren't getting your trailer towed off, right? Repossessed. I kind of looked at her and said, we should try this. One of the biggest challenges that these folks are facing is product market fit, advertising, marketing, design. And we understand that. And so our wheels were turning. We had a couple ideas. We learned very quickly, the importance of speed to market, which is a whole nother conversation, but we had a couple ideas that we just took too long on. But one of the ideas that we had, we were running a half marathon, and we got done with the marathon and we received all these samples. And I thought to myself, this is crazy that none of these brands are, saying like giant white dude, looking in
Because you are
line.
giant.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
large Nebraskan. What's your email? What kind of shoes you're wearing? None of that. It's just samples given to us. And so we got back, and it's probably one of the first times where we were both pretty sore from running, and we're sitting there, and I kind of think to her, I go, there's a real solution in understanding what the return on investment is on a sample. Like that's a problem worth solving. And we're always kind of hardwired problem solution, right? Like what's the problem? If you can solve it, there's money behind it. And so we started looking around, and we actually stumbled on Birchbox, which at the time was a brand new subscription box. It was 4 to 5 premium makeup samples. Buy it for $10, and then you can select what you like and get full size sample set. And my background being in the ad agency world and also working a lot on vitamins, supplements, healthy snacks, I knew that vitamins and supplements were a fast follower to makeup. So I actually started searching for, I always share like with people, how many ideas do you have? And then you go to Google and you're like, dang it, there's 20 of them that exist already.
It's always amazing,
It
isn't it?
is,
Yeah.
it's almost like, it's just heartbreaking, right? Imagine searching for something that you believe is a great idea and it's not there on Google. And you go, wait a second. My first thought was, did I spell supplements wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Am I using the wrong words? Because I'm
Yep,
sure this is
exactly.
going to have, when I spell it right,
Yep.
it's going
And
to
then I thought,
give me that feeling. So your hopes are
totally,
going to
totally. And then
crash
I
it.
thought, okay, maybe it's a terrible idea and there's a reason people aren't doing it. But, everything pointed, and we have a saying, if you're 80% or more sure, you should probably just go for it, right? You're never going to be 100% sure. So looked and looked, and we saw like, wow, there's room in this market. Back in the day, we called them sample boxes, not subscription boxes. And so we thought there's room in the market for a vitamin supplement healthy snack box. What if we go get free samples from brands, sell the box for $10, and have them come back for full size and sell our own products in the mix too? So we ended up doing that. We raised $1 million. We had no customers. We had a one-page website. I cannot believe people gave us $1 million, right? But we're off to the races from that. And so, here we are every month trying to find enough samples for these boxes. We're getting the boxes out, building the website. There was a really good rewards feedback loop. Then we started manufacturing our own products. We manufactured, I think under my belt, I've done about 100 different products that I've helped manufacture. So we were selling our own private label within the website as well. And that went really well. And I tell people this, and it's hard to believe, but our customer acquisition cost was like less than $1. I mean, it was just buy Google AdWords, they're there, end of story, right? Well, pretty soon, within a couple of years, we were the 6th subscription box out there. Within a couple of years, there was over 14,000. I mean, you can find a subscription box for anything. And so very quickly, our customer acquisition cost went to over $10, which in a subscription, all that really matters is your customer acquisition costs against your lifetime value. Really, that's all kind of the
Exactly.
formula that matters. CAC to LTV ratio, they call it. And that kind of went, sideways. We raised some more capital, but the writing was on the wall that it's like, look, you aren't going to raise $100 million like a Dollar Shave Club, like a beauty box, a makeup box or whatever. You're just not going to be there. And at the time, there had been no big acquisition. Dollar Shave Club hadn't sold for $1 billion, right? There was nothing out there. And the subscription box world was really, people started looking at it as kind of like the Groupon coupon savings thing, right? And so we raised capital, writing was on the wall, and we said, we have all these big brands calling us, asking how we're doing the fulfillment to retail, how we're doing the fulfillment on subscription, how we're managing inventory. We've ignored them all, but what if we picked up the phone and did these boxes for big brands? And instantly, first company that we talked to, GNC, they wanted a box as part of their membership program. So we did that. We made way more money, right? And the simple thinking was big brands already have the marketing budgets. I mean, just on the added value marketing alone, if you could just get them to kind of say, by the way, we have a subscription box, that's enough to make a profitable box, right?
Yeah, that's more traction from that than startups get from all the marketing effort and spend they can put out there, just because you're leveraging the attention they've
Yep.
got. It's this huge
Yeah.
advantage.
One email from GNC to their customers was worth millions of dollars in years of marketing. That's the, tough truth.
Plus the cred, right? It's
Yes.
not try our new startup, it's try this other great thing we also have for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then we just, we made a list. And I know Disney was number one, Crayola was two. We just thought, what are cool brands we want to work with? We just picked up the phone. We just pestered brands and we said, let us come, give us an hour. We'll present a concept, a business model. That was the big thing, is we were enlightening them to what a subscription could really mean for their finances. We quickly found out we were selling the CFOs on the concept, because getting a CMO to say yes is one thing. Getting an operations person to say yes is one thing, but if you get a CFO to say yes, nobody else matters. Like even the CEO doesn't care. They're just like,
Yeah.
go do it. Right. So we did that, talked to those brands. We built program after program. We built over 50 different subscription type consumer packaged goods program. It was a ton of fun. 3 projects for Disney, Crayola, Lululemon, Clorox. I mean, you name it, they were probably in the queue waiting for us. So everything's going well. Pandemic hits, tough lesson. And this is good for your viewers to hear. Big brands don't care about contracts in a global pandemic. They really don't. There's nothing you're going to do. You're probably tiny. We were working with Nuts
Yeah.
Miracle Grow. I think we had a couple of programs that were making 10 million plus. And
You're afraid of the legal costs. They're not.
100%. My whole pandemic
Yeah.
was spent on the phone
Yeah.
with lawyers, right? So all of these up and down, and we used to not share this because frankly it was embarrassing, but now we're proud of it, right? Because we made it through. But up and down, all of those big brands either paused, froze, or stopped their program. And it was really, really, really difficult because, we're talking, the pause button, or if they just closed down their retail store and people weren't getting the boxes in store. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars in revenue, just gone, vanished overnight, per brand. Right. And so our investors, and, I'll just say our investors thought we should do one thing, while Stephanie and I still saw this opportunity because we have a huge warehouse. We have all the software figured out, all the people figured out, all of the hard things over 10, 12 years have been figured out. This machine was operating, making money, but it was just, kind of the key piece of the customers were just gone. Right. And so we actually cut a really great, great, great deal with our venture capitalists. So we acquired the company 100% in October of 2023. It's embarrassing to say, but we still weren't sure what we were going to do. Like it was such a long battle, negotiating the terms, getting all that. We just didn't have time to really figure out like, okay, you have this warehouse and logistics company. Who's your audience? What are you going to sell to? So unknowingly or rather quickly, we get the documents and we get to sign and acquire the company. And we kind of turn around and we're still hemorrhaging money. And we're like, oh no, what are we going to do? And so we just did the thing that we always do, which is pick up the phone, identify different target audiences, call them up and say, hey, what problems are you encountering? Right. It probably took us about 150 calls until we started to go, wait a second, there's a big problem that consumer packaged goods brands of all size have. And it's so blatantly obvious, but can't be that simple, can it? And so we called a few more, changed up our marketing. We kind of got a little mini ad campaign running. And really what we discovered was how to help these smaller brands ship like the major brands. And what that means is most consumer packaged goods companies, they'll start out and they'll do their shipping themselves. They have their Shopify website, they do it themselves. Then maybe they get like an Amazon person. They're like, don't worry, I know somebody knows Amazon, right? And then they might grow big enough where they go and get a 3PL or a third party logistics company, maybe a ShipBob, ShipMonk, or Ship fill in the blank, right? Those typically only can handle direct to consumers' homes or direct to retail. And so we went, well, wouldn't it be interesting if we could ship both to retail places and to customers' homes and take the social media orders and really integrate everything into one dashboard so people can manage their inventory levels, because that's the biggest thing that we see as a challenge in logistics is not just getting the price to where it makes sense, but actually managing your inventory. So we picked up the phone. I think we were down to about 6 small clients. We picked up the phone and we started saying, hey, this sounds crazy. We're in Lincoln, Nebraska. You can give us all your inventory. We can go B2B, whatever amount, whatever type of product, any way you want to do it. Cut the deal with Target to do wacky packages, end caps, whatever. We can go to customers' homes and we can take your TikTok orders, your Amazon orders, et cetera. And that really doesn't exist at scale. And so we've grown now to over 60 clients and, since pretty much January of 24, grew really rapidly. And it's basically, we're just focused on shipping B2B, D2C, taking those social media orders and Amazon. And the thing that really has helped a ton of our clients is we encourage them to test different packages, different packing types. So we have a pancake brand that on their website, they sell variety packs, but on other websites, they'll only sell individual pancake mixes, right? And that's really the thing that we found that's really helpful for entrepreneurs is on the fly. It's always an afterthought of like, oh no, Cyber Monday is coming up, or, oh no, it's the holiday season. What should we do? And them to be able to put together holiday packages or different gifts or whatever, and do that on the fly and have us be able to deliver it to any location, any amount, that's been huge. And I'll leave it at this, probably the biggest opportunity that we see the brands that we work with, I almost want to say exploiting or taking advantage of, is with us, what they've been able to do is call mom and pops retailers and say, hey, you don't have to buy a pallet. You don't have to even buy a case. You just go to this link and you pick out 5 blueberry, 2 lemonade, and Bulu's going to get it out by the next day. So those mid-sized market kind of grocery chains or mid-sized stores, their ability to order exactly what they need from those brands versus a pallet or whatever, that's been probably the biggest opportunity we've seen our partners doing.
On both sides too, because for the brands, they don't want to fulfill huge orders to retailers that aren't going to sell it all. And then you have this problem with returns and product that's getting stale dated and all those other things in the case of pancakes. So I find just the amount of flexibility in what you do, it blows my mind. It doesn't seem possible even to me. I mean, and that's a good thing, because the kind of problems you and Stephanie solve and your resilience is just remarkable to me too. Your resilience, your boldness, the fact that you would do what some agencies I know might, create our top 50 dream list of clients. Well, you're calling those people and securing the business, and then things go sideways with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And you just think, well, okay, let's just reinvent our business entirely. I'm 80% sure. Are you? Okay, here we go.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss. When we first started with our subscription box, we thought for sure that people wanted to know what the return on investment was with the sample packet. But actually all they really wanted was to get their product in front of buyers. Like that's really what we found out that they were trying to do, is just be seen. And most entrepreneurs, the way that they think they're going to make money, probably only about 10% of them actually make money that way. It's usually in that process of doing and really listening and asking questions that you find out like, oh, this product needs to be sold out of doctor's offices, right? Or I'm breaking even at retail, but I'm making my margin at my website, right? That's the thing that like, I really wish entrepreneurs, I've just seen too many of them fail where they're just so hard-headed about, I'm going to make money this way and I'm going to do it this way because this person and this person, well, odds are you're probably not going to make money the way that you think that you are. We didn't think over 12 years we're going to evolve into a logistics brand, but just by listening and looking for that hard problem to solve, that's what always has kept us alive for another day, right?
Yeah, when we talk about your resiliency, I think that's the biggest part of it is you have the openness that a lot of entrepreneurs and even smart business people lack, is to be able to look around, to be very sensitive to what doors might you be able to kick open, and then giving that a try, because saying there seems to be something here. Are you noticing what I am? Let's try that corner and going over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of,
to me,
I tell people there's a lot of ego death, right? there's Some of the phone,
between ego and fear,
yeah.
the paralysis that comes out of
Yeah,
that, right?
some people call it courage. My wife would call it my shamelessness, but there's been plenty of those phone calls where I end up looking back on them and kind of cringing quite a bit, right? But there were plenty of phone calls where, net, the end of them was like, I don't know what would you do if you were in my shoes? I got this logistics. I have 100,000 square feet. We have all the software, we have everything built. Like, you tell me what you think we should do. There's even been times where it's just like, hey, help me out here. Toss me a bone, toss me some business, right? But the cool thing is, if you have the right intention of those things, and you can kind of always look back and like laugh at those times of like, man, we were really down and out and we had to do whatever we could to survive. But I do think that openness and vulnerability, and everybody that I talk to, for the most part, they want to see entrepreneurs succeed, right? Like, they want to be part of the story. They want to help you any way that you can. And you can't go into every single thing acting like you're the cat's meow. There's definitely sometimes where you just got to go, we know A and we know Z, but we need your help, or we need somebody's help to help us fill in those blanks. And yeah, that's really how we discovered this lack of B2B, D2C fulfillment, which is just wild. Even to this day, there's very few places doing what we're doing.
And when we talk about failing fast, I think a lot of entrepreneurs imagine that means fail the business, as opposed to admitting that this approach isn't working. Let's try these alternate ones. Let's try these other directions, keep ourselves open to doing that. Let's let the existing things we're doing continue, but try these other options and just keep on working these alternate opportunities in the background to see if we're going to start to catch and get traction on one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. That whole, you have to really surround yourself with great people and really understand when, we always talk about the model, when the business model isn't working, right? Like, and the model might be to make, a profitable business where you have some freedom, and might be to scale to 1 billion, but you really need to understand, like, is the work that I'm doing now building a model out? Or I always feel like there's a big difference between a hustle and a model, right? Like, a lot of people can hustle and make money, but can you actually do a scalable, repeatable thing? And that's really hard when you work in a direction and you get there, and the painful realization of like, oof, this isn't really a business model that I will ever be able to see succeed at the level that I want to. And that's tough. Like, saying no and admitting you don't necessarily have to fail the business, but I would say we had 3 or 4 business models fail, right? So in a way, those are almost like those business models within the name of Bulu failed. But yeah, you'll figure it out.
Ever wonder why some products fly off shelves while others collect dust? The difference isn't luck, it's psychology. I Need That reveals the brain science behind products people can't resist. Learn why we buy what we buy and how to make your product the one they absolutely must have. From the psychology of needs to the secrets of scaling, this is your roadmap to product success. I Need That by Laurier Mandan, available now in print, ebook, and audiobook formats at Amazon and lmandan.com.
I'm sure a lot of listeners are wondering, would this work for me right now with what I'm doing? So how do you know, when you're looking at potential business partners, customers, what are the key indicators you would look at to know a DTC brand is ready for retail expansion, for using Bulu? And on the other side of that, what are the red flags that would tell them you're not ready now? You should be patient. Don't take the leap quite now. Work on a few other things first.
Yeah, we talk to dozens of brands a week, and we don't get paid for it, but we're a lot of VC firms, a lot of people, even buyers, they call us and kind of go, what do you think is going to work? Is this smarter? Is this not smart? And I would say the first thing that comes to mind is one of the biggest mistakes I see is people go into retail way too soon. They can't really afford it. They think just because they get on Target shelves, things are going to be magical and it's all going to work out. And I've seen retail be the kiss of death for some of the best product, right? The number one thing that we look for is when we work with smaller brands. So we work with some brands who probably ship. Yeah, we've had some brands that were on Kickstarter. We have a computer company, and it was kind of a roll of the dice of like, should we work with them or not? And it paid off well because there was a hole in the market for this thing, and it worked out. But I would say the number one thing that we look for is like, how involved are the founders or the people that are really driving the final decision making? Do they know the product? Do they understand? Do they have a plan? Right? It's amazing how many people finish their product and they think that's the finish line. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 that's the, the running bid. You just got the number to begin the race. The other thing that we really look a lot at is like, do they have their heads wrapped around manufacturing? We get into, for smaller brands that we're really unsure of, we look and see what are they selling the product for? What are they getting it made for? How are they getting it made? Do they have multiple facts? So almost in a sense, we start to probably look like retail buyers for some brands. The other thing that I would say that we really look for is the flexibility of the product, right? Is this product able to be relabeled and marketed as something else? Is it able to be sold in different channels? The things that are probably the red flags are too many products, right? Like just too many SKUs, too many variations, too much dead inventory. When we quote a project out, we require from a lot of brands that they send us their historical shipping volumes so we can put it into our machine and understand how it's going to sell. This is a new one as of recently. If people don't have a retail strategy, it's really hard for us to say yes, which is very different than even 5-6 years ago, right? Like you could be an e-commerce only, and there are plenty of brands that can be like e-commerce only. But if there isn't a plan eventually to get into retail, or they're not thinking about it, or they say, no, I'm never going to go into retail, we kind of like run the other way, right?
That's really interesting when you talk about having a retail strategy, because a retail strategy with Bulu is different from what a retail strategy without Bulu would look like. So how do you advise them to map that out, not having had any retail experience yet, and also recognizing they're getting into something that's different from what they're going to read about if they go researching how to develop a retail strategy?
Well, we want to see who they're working with, what companies, like almost, I would say, like, we don't have to agree with the strategy. We just need to see that they're thinking about it, right? And I would say a lot of people have taken kind of that retail strategy that we're offering them of selling any amount to any brand. And this is the dream for us. There's a client that's shipping, anywhere from 500 a month to 5,000 units a month, right? And they've kind of topped out and they're just doing e-commerce, they're just doing online, they're doing Amazon, they're doing all those things. But we get the founder on the phone, and the founder is not shy to pick up the phone. I'm thinking of we have a client called Heavenly Waffles, right?
I saw that one.
Yeah. The founder wants to get into retail, and there's a big difference of a founder pitching retail versus like a broker or somebody else. I mean, founders that I know, they don't give up easily, right? And a lot of those buyers really like to see that. And when we could unleash Bob at Heavenly Waffles with, hey, you can go to Costco, you can go to any of these small mom and pops brands, you can go sell any amount and we'll get them out the next day. I mean, that there's almost like this light bulb goes off, and these founders are like, wait, I can go sell any amount to anybody and you guys will fulfill it. We have a brand. I love this guy. Actually, he's out of Canada. It's in a chapstick case, but it's a mosquito repellent. And he comes to retail buyer events in the United States, but on his way, he drives his car and he hits up every retailer he can find, and he just walks right in and goes and tells them, like, here's what it looks like, here's XYZ. I've seen this guy over a 2-year period get into about 600 stores just by doing that strategy alone.
That's amazing. That's what you're looking for in a founder, right? Is someone who is just willing to do that and is able to. So
Exactly.
it's not just the willingness, but it's that ability to get these retailers to understand why.
Yep.
And it's just a tiny amount of shelf space. You're going to sell these things, get this much great margin, and it's not a product that really matches anything else they're buying. I can't imagine. It sounds fantastic to have an insect repellent that's just spot precision like that.
Exactly. And it's almost, it's the same, us having pitched for capital or pitched for business. It almost comes down to that, like, man, if we can find that founder that has the problem, the solution, and they got kind of the key pieces, and we're able to take the headache of logistics off of them, game over. There's a few other ones that run a little bit different strategy, but I'd say for the most part, when we find that founder that's willing to pound the pavement and to make the sales, and they got a good solid pitch, and then the retail buyer sees that they're working with us and we can handle EDI compliance and whatever else they need, that's really kind of the magic formula.
It is. And when you talk about expanding into this whole brave new world, how do you suggest that entrepreneurs look at and plan, forecast, manage their inventory? How should they approach forecasting and cash flow differently when they go into balancing both DTC, which they've been doing at a fairly decent level to be able to work with you, and retail channels now.
I can't emphasize it enough of how, and it pains me to say this because we've built and sold the software, and I'd argue that at times we're more almost software minded than we are logistics minded, but I really can't convey to people how archaic the logistics industry is, right? I mean, there's still a lot of companies that do what we're doing and they're running on Excel, which I think is crazy. There's a lot of companies that have paper processes within their warehouses. And I think the thing that we see and the biggest pain point that we see is nobody has a firm grasp on their inventory. And especially if they have expiration dates, that gets really scary. So one of the key things that people need to make sure, and it's really simple, is they need to make sure that whoever they're working with, there's APIs and data that's flowing in real time. Because like with us, you get a portal and you can see what we're doing, when we're doing, how we're doing it. And we set it up for our clients where when inventories levels run low, that they get alerted to go make more, manufacture more product. And probably the biggest thing that I've seen a lot of people run into is they're doing a little shipping here, they're doing a little shipping themselves, they store something here or there, and inventories just get completely out of whack. And I'm talking even some of the bigger brands that we work with. So I think so much is lost on bad tracking of inventory. That would be if I had a consumer packaged good product and I was looking to distribute, sell, etc. I'm not okay with emails going back and forth. I'm not okay with a CSV or Excel file going back and forth. I need to see that things are all connected and it's all leading to one platform where I can track everything.
That single source of truth, right? Where you know, where you know it's accurate.
That is exactly right. Yep. You're going to be pushed with logistics companies to not have that, and they'll say whatever they can. The logistics industry is notoriously shady and frustrating, and we're one of those few that we didn't intend to go into it this way. But what's crazy is just running a business that does what we say we're going to do, and we just want to make 10% margin because we want to push all that money back to our clients for marketing because we know they need those extra dollars for that. But I would say that inventory is the number one thing that people, and I'm not just talking like their product, I'm talking boxes, packaging, tape, like they really need to get a firm grip on all of that because if they run out of boxes, that's for some people just as bad as running out of the products.
I find it just amazing to think about the range in the businesses that you've worked with, from the Disney, Crayola, Lululemon to the startup waffle and insect repellent on a stick. What are the unique challenges that the smaller brands face when they're entering retail compared to the larger established brands like the Fortune 500s that they've got this customer base? They've got all that brand awareness. And now I've got these little unknowns that are the first time a customer ever hears of the brand, maybe seeing it in a retail store, which we buy like that all the time. But how can these small operators plan for that and overcome the challenges that they're going to face being new and unknown?
The thing that comes to mind is like you have to have a grip on cash flow. You have to have a grip on terms. The big brands have that flexibility to kind of sign checks and have different terms and whatever. But for the smaller brands, man, like you need that to know when your payment's coming, to know when you're going to be able to buy some more. You need to have all of that cash flow down because if one of your partners gets off a little bit and they're not giving you the right terms, it's really easy for brands to run out of money, even if they have a great product, right? So that'd probably be the number one thing that I see is everybody with the smaller brands, they get really excited about these opportunities, but they haven't thought about like, oh, you got to pay for the shipping or you got to do this or you got to do that. And it all looks like it works out, but they have bad terms of, 14 or pay front or whatever. And that really sends things out of whack. And I feel like we've gone above and beyond to help even at times negotiate on our brand's behalf to get those terms the right way. But that's really difficult your first time around. And you need to really find partners that you trust and really say like, what would you do? Why don't you give me those terms? Like, why not give me the same terms as Disney? Because you're competing with them. And I've always found that line of thinking of like, hey, how can I ever compete with Disney if they have these terms and I have these terms? Why not give me these? And I think people would be surprised how many, UPS, FedEx, other people would be willing to be flexible, especially for a certain amount of time. Again, because they're kind of willing it's like they want to see the entrepreneurs succeed, right? Everybody kind of wishes they
Yes.
were in the trenches with them. So that's probably one of the big things that I see. And then, like I was saying before, man, there's just sometimes those entrepreneurs will agree to certain things and they turn around and their manufacturers can't make things the way that they think that they can, right? And then a really silly one is like a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about returns and customer service, right? That's always a big heartache for some companies, like some fulfillment companies and 3PLs, they won't even take your returns, right? So can you imagine you get everything all set up and you sign a contract and you get locked in and then all of a sudden, they don't take returns and then you get dinged by
Yeah.
Walmart or whoever it is, or customers get frustrated. That really big thing that I see is people underestimate the customer service and the returns, right? Like after you sell the product, it's not over. There's going to be challenges that you need to handle. And I think that's really important, again, to sink in the data with the fulfillment companies that you're working with. We take returns, and there's even a couple of companies. We work with a furniture company where we open up all the packaging, polish it down, et cetera, and repackage it, and we'll sell it as new. And that's called reverse logistics. And sometimes people have a whole nother 3PL just to handle their reverse logistics, whereas we're kind of like, it should be all in one so that they can go sell and not have to worry about all the after parts.
Such important stuff in there in terms of the terms. I've had clients that think they win the lottery when they end up being at Walmart or Costco or
Yeah.
Lowe's, only to find out, yeah, exactly, it's the kiss of death. And I've got clients that would never go back to those places.
Exactly.
I'm interested in how you manage when you have all of these smaller distributors. You have this distribution network that is all of these smaller businesses trying to determine where to place the product on shelves, because that's another challenge that new brands have going into retail. They assume they're going to be placed at the end of the shelf or at the cash register, and they find out that they're impossible to find in the store because brands pay to be in those premium locations, and those locations are worth money to the stores. So they have to really have a reason to put you in a great spot. In a nutshell, because that's a huge question, that's a podcast episode for sure in and of itself. But how do you advise new partners to get to understand that and to end up coming into it in a way that's going to be successful for them?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to answer that question. And the thing that I would focus on is, as silly as it sounds, the relationship with the buyer. I would really work on that relationship, find out what their needs are. Everybody puts these buyers on a pedestal, on a platform, right? And they're kind of got the magic wand of if they can put you wherever. But when's the last time as a brand you went and looked at their planogram or asked them, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? We had a brand that did that, and the buyer was like, I'm really got to work on my Christmas items and whatnot. And we were able to put together like an advent calendar with different snacks together specifically for that purpose. And I think they sold something like 80,000 units, right? Put yourselves in the shoes of the buyer and to kind of understand, not what they need today, not what they needed yesterday, but also like, what would they be thinking of in the future? And how awesome would it be if you're a buyer for somebody to say like, hey, I know Valentine's Day 2026, right? We're thinking about doing this thing. What do you think? And the thing that I have learned about the buyer world is, man, if you get a good relationship with the right kind of buyer that's networked in, they're gonna put you on with other people. I attend ECRM. I don't know if people are familiar with ECRM RangeMe. We actually built a software that became rangeme.com. We act as a buyer at a lot of conferences because of our background and what we've seen and how we've developed software for buyers. So I feel like in a way I'm kind of in that buyer circle and in that world. And it just without fail, buyers get favorites and they develop good relationships with people, and they'll tell them and they'll help them along the path. But I don't think it should be one of those things where you work with a buyer, they tell you what you need, you got it, okay, done, end of story. Like, no, like go work. One product I remember was doing terribly in the candy section. And I just kept pushing this person to talk to the buyer, and I was doing email intros. I'm like, go talk to him. Finally, they added protein to the gummy and they put it in the sports nutrition aisle. And the thing sold like crazy as like sports nutrition protein gummies, right? And it really wasn't that hard for the person to change their product, but it was just really sitting down with the buyer and listening to like what they need, what their needs are, and the person not being married to their product being a candy, but they were open to making it a little bit different. And so that's what I would do is I'd really focus on trying to develop my relationship with a few key buyers, do well for them, and then ask them to do some intros for you and to put you in front of other buyers.
That's a brilliant answer. And just recognizing being flexible, even if reformulation sounds like a really big step, but if you're making a product like that, you don't even have to reformulate the core one. You can
Right.
create a little spin-off of it and try that and see how that flies in this different category. So
And
I love that
a lot of them
idea.
will take care of you too. You know what I mean? Like if they're like, that's a bad recommendation or whatever.
I think they'll respect you for trying different
Yeah,
things
exactly.
and saying, well, we've got this new thing that we've got a sense is going to work. Can we give this a test in some of your stores? There's a lot of appreciation for bold entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that are willing to be flexible and aren't just
Cool.
going to bang their head against the wall until either the wall caves or they collapse themselves. I've got one wrap-up question for all the DTC people that are listening who know retail expansion is in their future, but maybe not tomorrow. Maybe they've got to take some steps first, and that might be a lot of brands that are thinking of doing this. What are the 3 most important things they should start doing right now to set themselves up for success when the right time comes, and be ready for the questions you're going to ask them when you're qualifying them to work with Bulu?
Yeah. I would say number one, start again, like developing relationships, not even with buyers, but with fulfillment companies, with manufacturers. Pick up the phone because it's really hard to go out and sell and then kind of try to make up the back end of it, right? You want to have your backup manufacturers, you want to have your backup suppliers, you want to have those ready. The second thing I would do is talk to other brands that have got on shelves, right? Like surround yourself by people that have already done what you're trying to do and really listen to those people and just like get into those circles, work in getting those relationships, because some of the manufacturers and packaging people and logistics people, they are your best way into the buyer, and people just never think to ask that or know that, right? Get in and surround yourself with people that have done what you're doing, right? And ask them for tips. As wild as it sounds, I've seen a lot of success and went with brands where, Expo West is coming up and some other stuff is coming up. Like, don't worry so much about having a booth or kind of being part of that show. Just go attend the show and like float around, ask questions, network. Because then when the time comes, now you have like connections in the manufacturing industry, the logistics industry. You're talking to brands that have done what you've done. They're giving you tips. And then people, I don't know if this is the case for other people, but the relationships that I've developed by attending trade shows have been exponentially helpful in following up with those people and not always just asking people for something, but just dropping somebody an email and saying, hey, Brad, we met 3 months ago at Expo West. You had mentioned this. I saw this article. Here you go. No questions asked. And those are the things that I would be doing. It's almost like setting up the table. So then when you are about to hit retail, you have phone lines to people that are going to help you, because it's almost inevitable when you get on retail, something is going to happen where you need to pick up the phone and get some help from somewhere. And you don't want to be in a rush when you do that. You need to go like, oh, wait, I know I could call Paul on this logistics thing and he might not be the answer, but he'll know where to get the answer, right? I can call Brad, like he has a line on a cranberry ingredient that I needed, right? And he might not know the cranberry ingredient, but he knows people in that industry that I can talk to. Because as much as we want to believe software technology, a great product sells itself, what I found is still in this industry is relationships are a big deal. And knowing where to go to get answers, and then having those people help you learn what questions that you should be asking. That's really important. And I think by doing those things, you're armed with the knowledge of like, oh, I know what I should be asking the logistics company, what I should be asking other people. Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm going to talk to this person that I know and ask them to point me in the right direction. And so much of my days are spent connecting people to the right people. And in turn, that takes care of all the business that we need. Like if you can become one of those people that people go to and they know that they're not going to get jerked around and they're going to get directed to the right spot, opportunities tend to flow your way.
Yeah, that's all great advice. Get off your island, build a network, get out there, going to shows where you can just flutter around and find those conversations and meet people you can help and who can help you, and so that you can do what that true network does. So you have phone numbers to call and people to fall back on. That's all hugely valuable advice. And it comes naturally for someone like you, Paul, being an extrovert and being as bold and adventurous as you are. And for anybody who doesn't, they've got to recognize that you reach down into yourself and find that part of you that can do that, because that is what's going to bring you the success that you want to have for your product or your products, and to make it all work.
I have to share this last part. I always go to these events and network with people, and they're like, how do you do that? I'm like, oh, trust me, it's awkward. You never get over it. But here's the thing. People at events or people that you pick up the phone and call them up, they're in the same position, right? Like they're at the show trying to do the same thing. They're networking, they're trying to do this. So I think if you remind yourself of that, it's always going to be a little bit awkward or a little bit weird, but odds are people are relieved that somebody just comes and talks to them, or they pick up the phone, right? And so we're all trying to do the same thing, and developing that network and people on your team is just valuable.
We imagine that our heroes, the people that we see that are killing it, haven't gone through the pain that we are, that we're the first to experience this stuff. And chances are they've been through it more times than you have. And that pain is a friend of theirs too. They just know how to push through
That's
it.
right.
That's it for this episode of Product Knowledge and my conversation with Paul Jarrett, co-founder of Bulu. Find out more about Bulu at bulugroup.com and Paul's work at pauljarrett.com. You'll find links in the show notes. Be sure to also visit graphosproduct.com, where you'll find all the podcast episodes with transcripts and get insights from our blog. And you can subscribe to my daily emails or buy I Need That at lmandin.com. Thanks for listening. I'm Laurier Mandin.